What's going on, guys? It's Greg Farley from the Wise Guys, aka Pegasus, and I'm here with yet another video. But before we jump into that video, we want to remind you our sponsor is InGaming. Their website is ingaming.com. If you use our coupon code TheWiseGuysTCG10 on all their cool products, you're going to thank us later. Let's get into the video. Now, jumping into the video, when we broke down YCS Dusseldorf, we talked about it in a little live chat that we had, live stream that we had. We really realized one thing. Salamangreat is the new kid on the block. It's the new heavyweight on the block. And while Dusseldorf really showed how strong Salamangreat was, when the Top Cut came, when UDS Las Vegas came, when the PPG Tour in Orlando came, it showed that Striker showed its dominance. Now, we're going to get into that debate a little bit later on, but let's first talk about the number 10 spot and Infernoids, Necros, Trains being very, very strong. Shout out to Thomas Barras. Praying Kids being a very, very powerful deck that is actually top to YCS. And of course, Alistair being at the forefront of the Mech Knight Invoked strategy. It goes without saying, all these decks are very powerful and have to be mentioned. Getting into number 9, we have to mention Pendulum Magician. Shout out to Jeremy Mitchell. Shout out to the newly, I think it's coming in the middle of April, the newly releasing Endymion archetype, if you will, and the new expansion on spell counters. The pendulum mechanic is only going to go up from here. Whether you believe it will or you believe it won't, at Nats or around Nats time and leading up to that, it's definitely going to be a force to be reckoned with. And if you don't think it will be, or you don't think you need your anti-spells ready, you would be sadly mistaken. Coming in at number 8, we have a very, very powerful engine, and that's the Danger engine. Now, I didn't exactly say one deck because, well, Baldarok is a thing, and anybody who really likes Danger knows that Orcust is a thing, and as well as many other decks. You know, Danger World was a thing at one of the YCSs, I believe it was YCS Chicago. And with the release of Dingirsu coming, again, another foreshadowing type event, Danger is very, very powerful, and I hated to restrict it to just one. So I had to leave it at that spot, although it can win anything. Next up, we have Subterror. Subterror is an insanely powerful deck. Now, how is it powerful? A lot of people think it's only a floodgate deck, and it pretty much is, but it also can play without the floodgates if you like cards like Phantasm, if you like being able to call by the grave and walk through your opponent's plays, and then depend on your hand traps to spot removal or to handle the problems that are on. And of course, when we say insane, we're thinking about Subterror Fiendus and Guru working in tandem off of a Hidden City. Up next, we have Trickstar. Trickstar banishing people's entire hand, using the Trickstar artifact engine, and even being mixed into the Orcust archetype. Trickstar, although it slid a little bit and is a little bit unexpected because we thought Pot of Extravagance would make the deck almost untouchable or a little bit higher on the list, Trickstar is still right where it should be and shouldn't be sneezed at. Next up, we have Altergeist. Altergeist coming in, I believe, at 5 because it's directly in the middle of the list. It used to be a little bit higher, but it's fallen off. It also is a YCS winner, but what has happened is that the introduction of Subterror and so many other decks towards the end of this list, and Necros coming into people's hands, it definitely is something to behold that Altergeist has fallen a little bit. Altergeist Hextech is a very powerful card, but it's fallen off. Whether you want to admit it or not, it's fallen off. Hextia just can't get to where it was as fast as it could, and it's a momentum-based deck that fights from its heels. And I think people are just tired of playing that style anyway. But it still is a very powerful deck that you have to have this high on the list. Coming in at number 4, and I mean number 4. Yes, you're not being tricked, you're not being bamboozled. Masterpiece is dead and all, but True Draco is still a top 5 deck. When I broke down this, I actually had True Draco a lot lower than this, but I don't like opinion-based things. You know, I don't like opinion-based choices on deck choices and all this. I like math, and math says that True Draco wins an awful lot. Now, granted, on the biggest stage of them all, it hasn't really done anything, at least at a YCS level, but it dominates regionals. Now, granted, it's pretty much a rogue killer, kind of like Salamangreat is, but what goes on with with the True Draco engine is the same perpetual control and Dynamite Knuckle being such a powerful standalone card, it goes without saying how powerful this deck really is. The winning percentage is around 64% or higher. Correct me if I'm wrong as the numbers roll across the screen. You cannot sneeze at this deck. Unfortunately, a lot of people do, and we all see what happens. Coming in, I know a lot of people hate floodgates too. Coming in at number 3 is Thunder Dragon. There are 2 distinct variants that people use online, but I'm not just talking about online. I'm talking about in real life. With the release of the Guard Dragons, with the ability to drop Hot Red Dragon, Archfiend, Abyss, whatever in the world his name is, Thunder Dragon with being a mistake on legs with Colossus, Titan being able to pop cards, the removal of Fusion, the drop of Chaos Dragon Levianeer into the deck. The deck is a very, very powerful choice still to this day. It's struggling to win tournaments though, with Salamangreat and Striker being above it. Shout out to the foreshadowing. But let's really get into the debate of who is number 1. Now some will say Salamangreat, some will say Sky Striker. You can't blame someone for voting one way or the other. One is a very, very, very powerful resource deck that can fight pretty much at chipping you away. And Salamangreat can chip you away as well, but it has more of a power push in the deck. However, there is one card that makes the decks have a distinct difference between the two, and that's why I said Salamangreat is number 2. Salamangreat is the most represented deck because, well, it's an affordable deck that I think needs to happen all the time. That's why I'm excited for the Endymion archetype to come out, because I think it's along the same lines. Maybe not as powerful as Salamangreat, but it's still going to be a force to be reckoned with. And it's allowing other players and newer players and younger players to be able to afford the game and get better at the game and compete with better players. Salamangreat I had at number 2 though, because its distinct matchup against Sky Striker is just a losing matchup a majority of the time. Now granted, Salamangreat is a rogue killer and it will pretty much destroy a whole lot of rogue in pretty much the back 5 of this list. It just is what it is. This deck is the rogue killer and it has less bad matchups against a lot of decks, but Sky Striker really has no bad matchup. Maybe 1 or 2. You know, I think Thunder Dragon, if you want to count Thunder Dragon, or Cosmo. I don't really count Cosmo right now, even though I love the deck. Sky Striker doesn't have a bad matchup, and the matchups that it does, you can mitigate it with deck building. And when you have a deck like that, it usually is the number 1 deck because everyone else has to adjust to it. Now, you could obviously say that about Salamangreat because Sky Striker itself had to adjust to what Salamangreat was doing to take back over the throne. And what has happened over the last 2 major events is that it has taken back over the throne. I believe in a smaller room, Sky Striker is a better deck because you don't have to worry about as much and you can pot greed people to death. Multi-role being the most powerful card that Salamangreat has to deal with immediately or their counter trap is irrelevant, and Rage flat out being a better card. I think it just breaks down to Sky Striker is just the slightly better deck. I do think they're dead even, as you've seen in all the numbers and all the charts and all the online charts and online play. If you disagree with anything I said on this list, make sure you tell me I'm an idiot in the comments. Drop a like, drop a comment, drop a subscription, drop a dislike, drop anything that you want. Just make sure you interact with the page. We always love interaction and try to interact, have interactive videos. We have debate videos coming, which is actually going to be a new thing. Breakdowns on all the new Endymion stuff that's coming, new deck profiles, just all kind of content. Make sure you guys stay tuned. Have fun to all my friends that are going to Atlanta. We have a few teammates going, but it's not going to be a ton. I actually have family coming into town, so I couldn't quite make it. But we appreciate you guys tuning in, and as always, YG baby.